Hello viewers, welcome to Newsweek South Asia, a show where we will provide you fresh insights into South Asia's geopolitical, strategic and security situation. Let's begin the show with the headlines first. India and Malaysia strengthen ties to combat terrorism and extremism. Global protests demand justice for kidnapped Hindu girl in Pakistan. And CRPF inspector killed in terror ambush in Jammu and Kashmir's Udhampur district. As the threat of terrorism and rising Islamist extremism looms large over South Asia, India and Malaysia have strengthened their partnership with a renewed focus on security. The recent state visit of Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to India underscores the deepening ties between the two nations, with both leaders condemning terrorism in all its forms and reaffirming their commitment to regional stability. We bring you an in-depth report.
India and Malaysia share a dynamic and steadily evolving partnership marked by close cooperation across a wide range of sectors. Their strategic alliance extends to regional and global issues, with a strong focus on security, economic development and diplomatic collaboration. On August 19, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim arrived in India for a state visit at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This visit, the Malaysian leader's first to South Asia, marked a significant moment in the diplomatic relationship between the two nations. The discussions between the two leaders were comprehensive, addressing a wide range of issues reflective of the complex and multi-layered ties that bind Malaysia and India. A central theme of their talks was the condemnation of terrorism in all its forms. Prime Ministers Modi and Ibrahim jointly called on nations to reject and denounce terrorism, emphasizing that no country should serve as a haven for terrorists. Both leaders underscored the necessity of bringing those who perpetrate such acts to justice, adhering to domestic laws and international conventions.
हम दोनों ने रक्षा क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग की नई संभावनाओं पर भी बात की है। आतंकवाद और अतिवाद के खिलाफ लड़ाई में भी हम एकमत हैं।
The issue of Zakir Naik, a radical Muslim preacher who has found refuge in Malaysia since 2016, has been a contentious point in Malaysia-India relations. Naik, who is wanted in India on charges of spreading hate and engaging in money laundering, was granted permanent residency by Malaysia's former Prime Minister, led by Mahathir Mohamad. His presence in Malaysia has strained bilateral ties, particularly given the severity of the charges against him. In 2022, India's Union Ministry of Home Affairs declared Naik's Islamic Research Foundation unlawful, citing his role in promoting hate and discord through his speeches, which have been accused of extolling known terrorists and encouraging extremist ideologies. During his visit, Anwar Ibrahim addressed the Zakir Naik issue, acknowledging that while it was not discussed in the current meeting, it had been raised by Prime Minister Modi in the past. He reaffirmed Malaysia's stance against terrorism, stating, "We are open to any ideas, and if compelling evidence is submitted, we will not condone terrorism. The issue is not about one person, but about the broader sentiment of extremism."
But the issue is, I'm not talking about one person, I'm talking about the sentiment of extremism, of compelling case and evidence that suggest the atrocities committed by an individual, a group, a faction, or parties. These are of concern to us. Now, issues if raised by countries to contain, to secure understanding, and to ensure that we have good bilateral relations would continue. And we are open to any ideas, and if evidence submitted, we will not condone terrorism. But you have to produce a compelling case to support. And we have been tough. We've been working together with India in many of these issues against terrorist cells.
The challenge of Islamist extremism and radicalism extends well beyond the individual case of Zakir Naik and poses a significant threat to the stability of South Asia. The region, characterized by its diverse mix of religions and cultures, has increasingly become a hotspot for extremist ideologies that fuel violence and unrest. In India, a nation celebrated for its secular fabric and diversity, the rise of Islamist extremism has had devastating consequences. The country has suffered numerous terrorist attacks over the past few decades. These incidents have not only claimed countless innocent lives, but have also highlighted the growing influence of radical ideologies that exploit religious sentiments to justify violence. India continues to grapple with threats from terrorist groups operating in its neighborhood. Extremist organizations such as Al-Qaeda, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hizbul Mujahideen have found safe havens, training and financing in Pakistan, creating turmoil across South Asia. In Bangladesh, the rise of Islamist radicalism has also become a pressing concern. The country has seen a surge in extremist activities, including recent violence against Hindus. These actions reflect a broader trend of intolerance and violence aimed at silencing dissent and imposing a rigid interpretation of Islam on a historically moderate society. The situation in Afghanistan, exacerbated by the Taliban's return to power in 2021, has further complicated the security landscape in South Asia. Afghanistan has once again become a sanctuary for extremist groups, including ISIS-K, which pose a direct threat to the stability of the entire region. The global community, especially South Asian nations, must collaborate on military, law enforcement, and ideological measures to counter these threats. As Malaysia and India work to deepen their relationship, their shared commitment to combating terrorism is not just a bilateral concern, but a necessity for ensuring peace and stability across the entire region.
Moving on August 19th, a protest organized by the Sindhi Foundation took place in front of the Consulate General of Pakistan in Houston, Texas, drawing international attention to the plight of minorities in Pakistan. The demonstration, which centered on the kidnapping of a young Hindu girl, Priya Kumari, is part of a broader series of protests across the United States and Canada. Protesters are demanding justice for Priya and highlighting the systematic persecution of Hindu minorities in Pakistan, particularly in the Sindh region. This report delves into the details of the protest and provides a comprehensive analysis of the ongoing persecution of minorities in Pakistan.
The abduction of Priya Kumari, a young Hindu girl from Sindh, Pakistan, has sparked outrage and led to a series of protests across the globe. On August 19, 2024, the Sindhi Foundation organized its 5th protest, this time in Houston, Texas, to demand justice for Priya and other minorities facing persecution in Pakistan. The protesters in Houston, carrying banners and chanting slogans, demanded an independent investigation by the United Nations to secure the release of Priya Kumari, who was kidnapped on August 19, 2021. The protesters alleged that the crime was orchestrated by powerful figures in Sindh, protected by their connections within Pakistan's military and government. The protest marked the 5th such demonstration organized by the Sindhi Foundation in recent months. Previous protests were held in front of the United Nations and various consulates in the United Kingdom, Switzerland and Canada.
3 years ago, she was disappeared. enforced disappearance, forcefully disappeared in Sindh province of Pakistan. She was only 7 years old. Still, we don't know where she is, but there are speculation that the Sindhis, feudal lords, Shahs, and their supporters, Pakistani military, they disappear her. What is the purpose? Why they disappear her? Why are disappearing our daughters? The reason is the Sindhi Hindus living in the Sindh, but they trying to forcefully to kidnap them, ransom, or they should leave the Sindh. But through our struggle, through our this momentum, through our this movement, we believe that Priya Kumari one day we will get free. And I asked the international community, especially United Nations, that they must do the international independent investigation about the Priya Kumari. That where is Priya Kumari? This is not the first girl. There are many girls that they disappear forcefully. So we are asking independent investigation.
The Sindhi Foundation and its supporters allege that the kidnapping was carried out by the influential Sayyid family of Sukkur, which includes high-profile political figures such as Federal Minister Khurshid Shah, Sindh Parliament member Nasser Shah, and former President Asif Ali Zardari. The protesters claim that these individuals, shielded by their political and military connections, have thus far evaded justice. The kidnapping of Priya Kumari is not an isolated incident, but part of a broader, systematic campaign of persecution against the Hindu minority in Pakistan, particularly in the Sindh region. Hindu families in Sindh have long lived in fears of abductions, forced conversions, and marriages of young girls. According to a US-based Sindhi Foundation, every year over 1,000 young Sindhi Hindu girls between the ages of 12 and 28 are abducted and then forcefully converted to Islam and married. The perpetrators often belong to powerful, politically connected families, making it difficult for the victims to seek justice.
अगर प्रिया कुमारी आजाद नहीं हुई तो सिंध के लोग कानून अपने हाथ में लेंगे.
She is kidnapped by the Shah community of Sindh, one of the most powerful minister in Sindh. He is behind this kidnapping. The Pakistan army claims that ISI is the world's strong intelligence agency. From 3 years, she's kidnapped. She's in Sakhar. We know, everybody knows, she's adopted by Shah family. But they don't want to release. The agencies, the police, the army, where they are. I'm asking Chief of Army Staff, General Asim Munir, you claim that you are a very most powerful person, and agencies, your agencies like ISI, world's most. So where is the Priya Kumari? From 3 years. And who kidnapped? They are very powerful. They are in government. Nasser Shah is the minister of government of Sindh. And I'm asking Bilawal Bhutto, take him out. He is the kidnapper. He is the murderer in all the Sakhar.
Pakistan's Hindu population, particularly in Sindh, has roots dating back thousands of years, long before the creation of Pakistan. However, in the decades since partition, the Hindu community has faced increasing marginalization. The state's failure to protect minorities and the complexity of religious institutions and the military in these crimes have created a climate of fear, forcing many Hindus to flee to India. Forced conversions remain one of the most pressing issues for Hindu families in Sindh. Young girls, some as young as 10, are often kidnapped, converted to Islam under duress, and married off against their will. This practice not only violates basic human rights but also contradicts the principles of Islam, which emphasize freedom of religion and the protection of the vulnerable. Despite repeated assurances from Pakistani leaders, there has been little substantive action to curb the persecution of minorities in the country. The state's ambiguous stance on extremist groups and the lack of accountability for perpetrators of religious violence have only exacerbated the problem. International human rights organizations, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, have condemned Pakistan's record on minority rights, urging the government to repeal discriminatory laws and protect all citizens. While the international community has a role to play in advocating for justice and human rights, the ultimate responsibility lies with the Pakistani government. Without decisive action to protect minorities and hold perpetrators accountable, the cycle of violence and discrimination will continue, leaving communities like the Hindus of Sindh in a state of perpetual fear and insecurity.
In a troubling development from Jammu and Kashmir, a joint patrol of the Central Reserve Police Force and the Special Operations Group was ambushed by suspected terrorists in Udhampur's Chil area, resulting in the death of CRPF Inspector Kuldeep Singh. This attack highlights the ongoing challenges in the region exacerbated by recent violence and terrorist activities. This incident comes in the wake of another deadly clash in Doda district and reflects the broader issue of Pakistan-backed terrorism destabilizing the region. Indian security forces are intensifying efforts to combat the influence of Pak-based terror groups, aiming to restore stability in a region plagued by ongoing conflict and infiltration attempts. Here's more on the story.
A joint patrol of the Central Reserve Police Force and the Special Operations Group of the Jammu and Kashmir Police came under heavy fire from suspected terrorists in the remote Chil area of Udhampur's Dudu region. The attack claimed the life of CRPF Inspector Kuldeep Singh, who was leading the patrol. The ambush took place in the thickly forested and mountainous region, which has become a notorious hotspot for terrorist activity. Security forces have launched a counter-terror operation to track down the perpetrators, but the rugged terrain provides ample cover for the terrorists to evade capture.
हमारी ड्यूटी का एक पार्ट है और बेशक ये दुखद होता है, बट एट द सेम टाइम ये हमारा एक कर्तव्य है जिसको हम पूरा करते हैं. टेरेन को आप बखूबी अब जानते हैं, काफ़ी जंगल वाला एरिया, काफ़ी बिना रोड्स के, बिना नेटवर्क के एक पहाड़ी टाइप का एरिया है और यहाँ पे कई सारे चैलेंजेस हमें सामने आते हैं. हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि टेक्नोलॉजी को यूज़ करते हुए ड्रोन्स का और बाकी जो इंटरवेंशंस हैं उनका इस्तेमाल करके इस थ्रेट को जल्द से जल्द न्यूट्रलाइज कर दिया जाए.
The attack comes on the heels of another deadly encounter on August 14th in the neighboring Doda district, where an army captain and a terrorist were killed in a fierce gunfight. The recent spate of violence is part of a broader pattern of escalating terror activities in the Jammu region, particularly in the southern reaches of the Pir Panjal range. According to the Ministry of Home Affairs, 28 people, including civilians and security personnel, have been killed in 11 terror-related incidents and 24 counter-terror operations up to July 21 this year. The region continues to face significant security challenges with frequent infiltration attempts by terrorists crossing the line of control from Pakistan-occupied territory. Pakistan's support for these terrorist groups is seen as a deliberate strategy of proxy warfare aimed at destabilizing the region and undermining India's claims of peace and stability in Jammu and Kashmir.
Pakistan regularly has training camps for all these terrorists, where the army and the ISI, they regularly brief them, train them, and also help them in the infiltration. These people are brought over to the launching pads over there, and then ISI directs them how to go. Pakistan not only morally supports them, but also gives financial aid to the families of all these terrorists who are killed when they cross over to the LOC. Therefore, Pakistan is the main perpetrator.
The Indian government has responded by ramping up security measures in both the Kashmir Valley and the Jammu region. Additional forces have been mobilized and deployed in key areas to plug infiltration routes used by the terrorists. Security audits have identified around 24 sectors along the line of control and the international border in the Jammu sector, where terrorists frequently attempt to cross over, often with the assistance of local guides. These infiltrators are equipped with sophisticated weapons, including American-made M4 assault rifles with infrared thermal sights, and are highly trained in jungle warfare. To counter these threats, the government has initiated several projects, including enhanced border fencing, to seal off these infiltration routes and secure the region. The ongoing operations and security measures underscore the Indian government's commitment to safeguarding Jammu and Kashmir from external threats.
Let's now shift our focus to Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, where residents are increasingly frustrated with the severe lack of development. Essential services such as access to safe drinking water remain scarce and infrastructure is in despair. Recently, a local councillor highlighted the ongoing crisis, citing unresponsive authorities and neglected regions. The poor infrastructure disrupts daily life and economic activities, worsening the situation. Residents accuse the region's administrators of systematic discrimination and broken promises. Let's take a closer look.
The Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir is facing significant socio-economic challenges. The persistent lack of development and the perceived indifference of successive governments have fostered a sense of alienation and frustration among its residents. The region suffers from prolonged power outages, poor road infrastructure, and numerous other issues. Many lament that even basic amenities like safe drinking water are often out of reach. A local councillor from the region has underscored the deplorable state of infrastructure in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
लेकिन आपने एक तरक्की की बात की, पीने का साफ पानी आपको भी पता है कितना। कल मुझे तरकाबाद से फ़ोन आया, हमारे वहाँ से कौंसलर राजा ताहिर साहब, उनके मले से फ़ोन आया, उन्होंने कहा जहांगीर में 3 दिन से यहाँ पे पानी नहीं है, इतनी मुश्किलात है। उन्हें फ़ोन करके उनके कानों पे जू तक नहीं रिंगती, वो कहते हैं ठीक है जी आज कर देंगे, कल कर देंगे।
The lack of proper road infrastructure not only disrupts daily life but also impedes economic activity, as the transportation of goods and services is severely affected. The government's apparent lack of commitment to addressing these issues exacerbates the hardships faced by the people. The local councillor also highlighted how the political leaders and honchos from Islamabad canvass votes during the election process through fake and appeasing promises.
गवर्नमेंट्स आती है, शुरू में बड़ा जोर लगाती हैं, 1 साल के लिए 2 साल के लिए, फिर आगे से नहीं शुरू हो जाती है, गवर्नमेंट के लिए लॉबिंग शुरू हो जाती है, इलेक्शन की तैयारी हो जाती है, ये प्रोजेक्ट्स यहीं पे रहते हैं।
Residents have long accused the Islamabad administration for its deployed proxies in POJK, who have been regularly suppressing the general public. They argue that despite claims of autonomous rule, the reality is far from it. Basic amenities, which should be standard, have become a luxury for many in this Pakistan-occupied region.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra, signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.